here for Torna Egeas Session 2. Before I talk about what happened in Session 2, and I just finished, so I'm pretty amped up about it. There was something I forgot from Session 1. When we were exploring, when Torna was exploring the ancient ruins he found a book of dead gods in the temple ruins. It was kind of funny trying to get it open because it was a locked book. A few different members of the party had to try, and everybody failed trying to get it open with lockpick stuff, trying to get it open using Arcana. And the last person to try was Asterion, and the last option that hadn't been used was to hit the book, and it was successful. So I imagined this funny moment where everyone at the party, the book's being passed around, they're all trying different things, and then finally Asterion just hits the book and it popped, the lock pops open. Anyways, that book had a list of dead gods. The last few entries were smudged, and Shadowheart approved, which is like a little thing that pops up on the screen, which I assume affects your relationship with them based on the things that are happening in the world. So that was kind of interesting. Obviously, there's something going on with her, and that was something I forgot from the first session. Okay, on to the second session, because a whole lot happened, and it's kind of nuts to try and figure out what's going to be, what Torna's going to be doing here. Okay, so the very first thing that happened in the second session was I decided that I wanted my party to explore these ancient ruins a little bit further. If you remember, in Session 1, we found like the back door to the ruins, and we did what I assume was the end of the ruins, that dungeon first. And so then we found the front door. And so I was going to hop in down on the front door and start exploring it from that direction. And I did, and there was another adventuring party down there, and it was a TPK. They completely rocked my party. So I reloaded to the previous save, and I said, you know what, we'll do that at the end of this session, assuming we'll level up. So instead of going back to the ruin entrance, my party went to their second objective of this session, which was to find the Githyanki Lazail. And they were able to do it pretty quickly. There's a lot of paths kind of in this mountainside that they're exploring. And the first path they took, there was Lazail stuck up on the, like in a trap. She had gotten trapped on her way down, falling from the ship. And around her were some tieflings trying to determine whether or not or what they should do with her. They just weren't even sure. Torna was able to bluff them that the Githyanki's really dangerous. Well, it wasn't much of a bluff. Lazail is super dangerous. And yes, also Githyanki are very dangerous. And he was able to bluff the tieflings, and they ran away. And Torna said that he was going to take care of Lazail, which he let her out. Not a problem at all. So she joined the party and went back to camp. And so the way it works is you can only have a party of 4. We needed somebody who can be on the front line. So Torna decided that Asterion was going to stay at camp, and Lazail was going to come with the group. And so the party makeup is now Lazail, who's in the front of the camp, Shadowheart, who just kind of does whatever is needed, Gale, the wizard, who shoots from afar, and then Torna Egeas, who is going to be doing kind of hopping in the back and doing stuff back there. Anyways, they continued down the path. Lazail was adamant that they needed to find this Creesh, this Githyanki home, essentially, that should be nearby, and she was adamant that they could get their parasites healed there. But it really sounded more along the lines of she would get her parasite healed, and then the rest of the group, it would be determined what would be done with them once, they're aware of the Creesh and all this secret of Githyanki stuff, and the Githyanki are not super, it seems their culture is pretty violent. So, she says these things, and Torna asks questions of her, and she says, I can't tell you anymore. And it just kind of sounds like she's trying to save her own skin, and certainly this is her best route. But is it Torna's? Is it the rest of the group's? Who knows? Anyways, they start walking down the path a little bit further, and they come across some fighters. Maybe they're druids. They're dressed in green, and there is some tieflings. It's like a hidden base that the tieflings are in. There's some either druids or humans that are trying to get in, and then some goblins attack. And so we walked up on the scene just as that was happening. The group, Torna and Dissociates, were able to help take out the goblins. Nobody was killed in the onslaught, and they were admitted into this tiefling camp. And holy cow, there's a whirlwind of stuff happening here. So apparently the tieflings live right next to a druid grove, okay? And from what Torna can understand, the druids are very, very nervous about this goblin war that's happening and probably this crashed mind flayer ship. And so they've started a ritual that is going to help remove them, or protect them, I guess. It's going to create some sort of like druidic power where they can be safe in their grove. Nobody gets in, nobody gets out, but they're safe. Their order is secure. And the problem is that the tieflings are also right there. And so the druids are trying to get the tieflings out. The tieflings are mostly civilians. They really don't have a lot of fighters, it seems. And so there's kind of a lot going on there. The tieflings don't want to leave, but if they do need to leave, they want help. They want to be escorted out of there. The druids don't want the tieflings to get out right away, but the druids also want to do the ritual now. They want to try and save themselves right away. And there's also some goblin stuff going on. So this was pretty nuts as far as what was going on. So the first thing that Torna did is he went and talked to the leader of the tieflings. The tieflings basically just said, please go talk to the leader of the druids. I can't even go in there anymore. It's a new leader whose name is Koga, I think. And just try and talk some sense into her, or at the very least give us more time. And so Torna said, okay, I'll do that. Heads down to the druids area. There's some tieflings yelling at the druids, talking about, I need my daughter back. The druids push the tieflings back, but Torna's able to get through because Koga wants to talk to Torna, of course. So Torna walks in, talks to Koga, and convinces Koga, through some very, very adept bardic role-playing, convinces Koga to let this little tiefling girl go who's accused of stealing. The girl runs off instead of being imprisoned or worse, because Koga seems crazy. And Koga talks to Torna. Essentially, Koga says that she is not willing to sacrifice any of her druids or their safety. She wants to get this ritual done as soon as possible. Now, Torna is a half-elf, and Koga is a wood elf, and that's like the wood elf is what Torna's background is. And so there's some shared heritage there between Koga and Torna, and they were able to talk a little bit about some of that heritage. And so there was not a full understanding. It seemed like Koga was not willing to sacrifice any possible unsafe behavior from anybody for the druids, but she did say that she would be willing to allow Torna just a little bit of extra time to lead the tieflings out of there. Now, that sounded good to Torna at the time, because the idea is, okay, Laziel wants to go to this Githyanki creche to get them healed, and the tieflings need somewhere to go, but there was actually another way out as far as this tadpole thing behind their eyes. It turns out there is a healer in the druids area who is very powerful and could potentially help them out with this parasite, this tadpole behind their eyes. And so Torna went to talk to the healer and found out that the really powerful healer was actually captured or killed on an expedition to the west not too long ago, and that's like a future thing that is going to need to be decided. But the backup healer, like the not as good healer, her name is Nettie, and she's there in the druid circle, and she might be able to help. So after Torna gets Koga to agree, number one, not to imprison this little girl who stole something, but number two, also convinces her to give them a little bit more time to save the tieflings, then goes and talks to Nettie. And Nettie tells, she's a druid, she's a healer, and she tells the party all she knows about these mind flayers. She's got a dead mind flayer husk on the table. She's got a mind flayer parasite that is stuck in a jar. There's mind flayer notes all over her table. And so Torna just kind of tells her, like, yeah, we have a mind flayer. What can you do for it? So she grabs a stick. She says, stand still, this will only take a minute, and then she begins to ask Torna questions. And the questions are very specific, to the point where, I'm getting a little like, I don't know what the specifics I should tell her about. So I start answering the non-mind flayer questions. I can tell her about the voices in my head or how I'm connected to the other people in the party, but instead I tell her things like, yeah, when I fell from the ship, I was saved last minute. And then she said something interesting. She said something about that being the drow that might save me, like the dark dark elves. And I was like, thinking to myself, that doesn't make any sense. So that mystery has gotten a little bit deeper. I'm curious to see how that works out. But at the last minute, my character, Torna, he had some sort of inspiration that this Nettie character was lying to him. And so he's able to kind of talk her down. She tried to attack him. He dodged it. And she gives up essentially from trying to like last minute take out 4 people just on her own. By the way, she had led them into like a secret library in her little healing area, which was like, I don't know what she was thinking, bringing 4 people there and then trying to take them all out on her own. And then she brings out some poison and she says, promise me that you will drink this poison if you feel like this tadpole is affecting you. And Torna couldn't do it. When I think about Torna's character, in his background, he's the last of the pagan bards, and while he has had to survive, on cheap entertainment and stuff like that, I think there's some honorability in him still, and for him to swear it to Nettie that yes, he would drink the poison if he started feeling the mind flayer parasite starting to impact his ability to think, he just couldn't do it, and so I didn't select that option, and Nettie just started attacking the group. And so she put up the walls. We were stuck in her little secret library. We couldn't get out. And she started attacking the group. She was so nice before, kind of. And I didn't want to do it. I wanted to attack her back. So Torna used all of his magic. He used sleep 2 times, and then there was something else that I used, or that Torna used to try and stop her from attacking the group. And the entire group spread out throughout the entire library, turn by turn, and was trying to figure out how to get out of the library. There was one of the notes on the table was from the, I forgot the healer's name, but the really good healer that Nettie was kind of like the helper to, or the assistant to. And it said that I'm leaving the like druid circlet with you. And when and you can use it to open the library, the secret library, or something like that. And so we're trying to find, like, there's a few different mechanisms in the library that can do different things. We're trying to get out. Torna's trying to find this necklace, and then realizes that it's on Nettie, but I can't pickpocket because I don't have that skill. That's something only Alistair, is that his name? Asterion can do, except that Asterion's back at camp. And so all of a sudden, Nettie wakes up and starts attacking again, and there's nothing else to do. The party has to kill Nettie. And so just an awful, awful moment. The group lays into Nettie. It's super fast. I mean, it's 1-on-4, and Nettie's not even that powerful. And they kill Nettie in her own secret library in the middle of the druids' encampment, where they're literally casting a ritual so that no druids will be harmed. This is a problem for multiple reasons for Torna, because first of all, he didn't even want this to happen. Torna was trying to seek help from Nettie, and the worst happened in that the group, and specifically Torna, had to kill Nettie to stop her from killing them, even though she was not much of a threat. It was ridiculous. And number 2, if they waltz out the front door, it's probably not going to take long for Koga, who seems kind of insane and hellbent on saving these druids at all costs, to come after them with, the might of the druids, and that's not a good thing. Luckily, there is a second, like a back door, and the necklace or whatever it is, this magic item that Nettie had, works. So, of course, Torna steals the necklace and a whole bunch of other books from her library, because there was some interesting stuff in there. And Torna opens up this back door. It leads to a secret passageway, or I guess caverns, which are kind of like a secret passageway. There's some goblins in there that had tied up a human. The group was able to sneak attack the goblins, take them out in no time. And they save a human who's lying down there. Now, Torna, thinking back, is probably not regretting saving the person, but that's their link to Nettie's murder, is the fact that this person saw them in the caverns, which are connected through the secret passageway to the druid's inner circle. So Torna's best bet right now is to stay as far away from the druids as possible, and the group was able to navigate through the secret caverns, grab some loot down there, because I think some of it was undisturbed for a while, and then get back to the tiefling camp, which is right next to the druid camp, but not go back to the druids, go talk to the tieflings, and then pretty much get out of there as quickly as possible. Torna is pretty nervous here at this point, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. The group then heads back to the ancient ruins where there was the TPK at the start of the session. They jump down there and they take out the adventuring party that had TPK'd them at the start, and then they do some light exploration of the ruins. Then, since that was most of the session, they decided to take a long rest down there. Now, a lot of interesting stuff happened for all of the members of the party during this particular session. So I'm going to go through each of them in order, because there's the scene with Nettie where Torna just refused to lie to her. He couldn't swear to her face that he would take poison if he felt this tadpole taking control of him, because that would end the lineage of these pagan bards he was a part of. But if he had lied, they wouldn't have needed to kill Nettie. So this is weighing heavily on him. Except it kind of seems like every single person in this party is lying to him, and lying to him like in a really, really dangerous ways. So here's a good example. Gale, the wizard, pulled Torna aside at some point during the adventure and said, "Hey, I've never told anyone this but my cat, ha 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 ha, but I need to consume magic items or else I get really sick." And it just sounds like the most ridiculous wizard lie I have ever heard. Torna does not believe Gale at all. You know, there's a few magic items that Torna is keeping track of, and now going to just be the person who's going to carry them from now on, because what is that? Who says that they need to consume magic items or else they'll get sick? That's ridiculous. So Gale seems to be playing a dangerous game and wanting to increase his power in some way. Sure, maybe he's telling the truth, but it seems like a really weird thing that needs to happen. So Torna does not trust Gale at all. And Gale seems, it seems almost so ridiculous that like the reason is so ridiculous that Gale doesn't even think Torna is crazy. And Gale, when he was telling this story to Torna, he was like really buttering him up too. It was like it was ridiculous. It seemed very, very half-baked. So Torna does not trust Gale, and the fact that Gale wants magic items is not great. Okay. Number 2, Lae'zel. Okay, Lae'zel, the Githyanki, wants to go to the Krish to get this tadpole out of them. She talked about the fact that there's some sort of procedure or protocol that happens when you get infected by mind flayers. And it's like, oh, okay, so this has not only happened before, but like there's a working order of a workflow to follow here. And Torna asked her about like what else was going to happen. And she said, "I can't tell you. I've probably told you too much already." And so Torna definitely doesn't trust Lae'zel. She's not outright lying to him, but she's just not telling him relevant information that he definitely needs to know. On top of that, she had a throwaway line about growing up in her Krish and how she slit her own cousin's throat because someone told her to. You know, that tells you all you need to know about Githyanki culture and why people don't like the Githyanki, at least around Baldur's Gate. And Torna is, you know, she's not outright lying to Torna, I don't think, but she's definitely not telling him all the information he needs to know. And when their culture is that violent, that's pretty important. And so that is a big decision that Torna's going to need to make. At the beginning of session 3 is Torna and the group going to go try and find this Githyanki Krish and rely on them to heal them from the tadpole, or is he going to go try to find this druid that could still be alive and maybe got captured, who could heal them from the mind flayer tadpole? Both options are bad because the Githyanki culture seems absolutely nuts, but also Torna just murdered this druid healer's assistant, Nettie, and sure, the druid may not know that initially, but I'm sure that this druid will need to get back to his base, his home, his druid's grove, to heal these people, and when he does, he's going to find out that his assistant has been murdered and that Torna has the necklace and all the notes and all the books so it's a bad choice. Anyways, I'm not done with the people. So going to Asterion. who's been at camp this entire session, just started laying it on thick during this long rest and was just not just complimenting Torna, but just straight up hitting on him. It was absurd. Torna got some inspiration and realized that this was a facade. Asterion was not, being 100% honest in how amazing he thought of Torna. And so Torna kind of kept his distance a little bit with Asterion and told him to cool his jets because all the flattery did not seem authentic. And Asterion said, well, I was just trying to have fun, blah, blah, blah. I wasn't sure what the result of that conversation was going to be, and it just kind of ended. But when the long rest actually happened, Asterion snuck off into the temple. Like, there's a shot, like in a movie, of him sneaking away into the temple, and then it, faded to black. So Asterion's out there doing who knows what. Again, he's like, I think he's a vampire, but that's just on the visuals of him. And so I have no idea what's going on with him. And again, I don't trust him at all, but I have no idea what's going on. Then the last person in the group is Shadowheart. Now, Shadowheart, I've already established that I do not trust Shadowheart. She has lied to Torna, but the main thing that for Torna is her lies are really, really bad. All right, every single time she has lied, it's just so obviously a lie, and that actually makes Torna trust her more than anybody else, because I think Torna trusts Lae'zel's intent, but not anything else, not her judgment. But he doesn't trust what she's not telling him. But for Shadowheart, I think he trusts her more because when she does lie, it's really, really obvious to find out. Whereas Asterion and Gale, it seems clear they're lying to him too, but he can't really tell what's going on with them. Now, another interesting thing happened with Shadowheart. When they were in the Druid's Grove, there was this magical snake that kind of slithered by Shadowheart and maybe made contact with Shadowheart, or something else happened magically. And there's an open wound that's on her hand, and she was like, ow, that hurt. And when Torna asked her about it later, she said, oh, it's nothing, it's just an old wound. And he could have pressed her on it, but it was one of those things where it probably wasn't going to go well in the conversation, so he didn't. So not only does Shadowheart have this weird artifact she doesn't want to talk about, but she also has this magical wound that she says just kind of hurts her once in a while, but it seemed like druid magic may have triggered it to hurt her. And she clearly is some sort of cleric of, not good. Like, she has, one of her spells is cause serious wounds. And so, he just does not trust her, but he trusts her more because her lies are so bad. And whereas the others seem to be less straightforward with what they are or are not telling our hero, our main character, Torna. And so that's where we are kind of to end this session. Gale maybe lying to Torna about wanting magic items. Asterion definitely lying to Torna about something and sneaking off in the night. Lae'zel definitely not telling Torna everything he needs to know. And Shadowheart lying to Torna about this artifact she has and a wound on her hand, although she totally flirted with Torna at the end. She asked, what would you do if I I started acting like a Mind Flayer husk? And Torna's led with visions of Nettie dying in the library. He said, I would tie you up and try and find a cure. And she said, oh, I would just kill you and not even think about it. And then when she said goodnight, she said something like, try not to dream about tying me up, which was absolutely hilarious. Asterion was also totally flirting with Torna, but it was a lot more very, very forward and obvious. And again, it was Torna was able to kind of see through that this was a facade and not really authentic in what Asterion may have actually been feeling. So this is super interesting what's going on. The biggest discussion or decision that needs to happen for next session, when I start session 3, the group is going to be heading out into the wilderness, uncharted territory. For the first time, they have their feet underneath them, but Torna needs to decide, are they going to find this druid healer and try and rely on him to help them with the Mind Flayer tadpole? Or are they going to go into the Githyanki creche and try and rely on the Githyanki to heal them from the Mind Flayer tadpole? And this is a tough decision because Again, the Githyanki culture, very, very violent. I have a feeling that there's going to be discussions as soon as we get there about just murdering all the non-Githyanki, so everyone but Lae'zel. So that's not a good thing. And then the druid, of course, will at some point find out that his assistant was murdered, and it's likely he will find out that the assistant was murdered by Torna and associates. So kind of a lose-lose situation here, but this is the task. This is what they need to do first and foremost, is get rid of these tadpoles. So this is super interesting. I'm having so much fun with this. I don't know what I'm going to decide. I'm hoping to play tomorrow or the following day. The interactions between the characters are also getting interesting. One last note, there was a moment when there was, in the tiefling camp, there was a goblin caught in the cave, or in a cage, excuse me, and I had to lead with and roleplay Lae'zel for a little bit for a reason, and I could have intervened to stop the goblin from getting killed, and I'm kind of wondering if that was another NPC that could have joined our party. It kind of seemed like it, in hindsight, that would have been the case, but if I was Torna, I may have done it. I was Lae'zel at the moment, and there's no way Lae'zel would step in and try and stop a goblin from getting killed, so I didn't do anything, and the goblin died. But I'm going to, at some point, I'm going to probably find out about that, because that was kind of an interesting moment. So that's everything. I will, very, very fun. I can't wait to find out what happens in session 3. Next time with Torna Egeas. A mind flayer. However, she says, you need to nurture the power that this tadpole gives you. You need to be able to grow this power so that we can fight a battle for Faerun and in the war to come. Okay, so I don't even know. This is nuts.